note, the former president says that this is something that's being driven by the Vice President Kamala Harris. There's no evidence of that, just as there was never any evidence that Joe Biden was driving these cases. But once again, it is similar language, similar framing, and a similar effort to elevate something that for most politicians would be a significant problem. The real question going forward, this will likely be a focal point of some of those campaign trail remarks in the weeks ahead. Will he make appearances at the courthouse? Will the rest of the playbook roll out as it had before? That's an open question, but certainly we've seen a lot of this before.
We certainly have, and it'd be amazing to see if we really do get some visibility on how successful the fundraising is, because as you pointed, it has been before, and it was a real indicator of sort of his rise and resurgence. Whether that actually is still the case. All right, Phil, thank you very much. And so let's go to Ty Cobb now, former Trump White House lawyer. Ty, you've had a chance to read through these 36 pages, obviously slimmed down just a little bit, not much, 9 pages fewer than the original indictment filed last year, keeping those 4 key charges and editing, emphasizing that it is in a personal, private capacity under which Smith has the authority to make this indictment. Did he do it? Does this indictment make a clean-cut case that the acts were personal?
I think it does. I think, some of the editing that you highlighted in your intro is spot on, emphasizing the private nature of many of these acts, the private funding of the speech at the before the Capitol intrusion, Pence's ceremonial role, the non-governmental roles of the co-conspirators, which they can now say categorically, and now that Jeffrey Clark is out, because he was the only government official who was actually in the original indictment. He's no longer in this indictment. So all the co-conspirators were acting in their private capacity. I think this threads the needle. If I'm Trump's lawyers, and I'm surprised, I'm scratching my head at that, because this was the reasonable approach to take. No reason to go through a series of hearings before Judge Chutkan and force the task of editing the indictment on her when you can put forward a forceful case like this.
And do the work for her. All right, so then what happens? She gets this case, as Evan was laying out, next week. What happens then? And does it eventually just go back to the Supreme Court? But is this fast or slow from here?
So it'll be slow from here, not merely because of the superseding indictment. Whatever the indictment was going to look like after it went through whatever hearings the Judge Chutkan is going to have, she still will have a hearing on the adequacy of this indictment. It does have, there is an interlocutory appeal available, at least as I read the Supreme Court decision. And that doesn't mean the Supreme Court has to take it if the D.C. Circuit acts before and they're content with whatever they do. But this hasn't been on course to go before the election for months. This was never going. That was never going to happen. But as you point out, this is a very forceful document. It's pared down. Every sentence is, crisply worded. It's a tight narrative. You can't read this and not understand the crimes that Trump actually committed. And as you pointed out, 55 years is exposure. That he's not going to get 55 years, but he'll get 6 to 9 on this.
So can I ask you about that? 6. Okay, so you think he could get 6 to 9, and obviously I put out 55 just to so people understand the seriousness of those charges. But even 6 to 9, for someone his age, it's very significant. You know him well. What do you think happens from here?
He won't take this seriously until the final gavel comes down and the jurors come back and say guilty, and he actually gets sentenced. This will be a lot of delaying tactics by his lawyers. They've already said it's the same indictment. Clearly, it's not. They've already said that this will be dismissed, should be dismissed immediately. It won't be dismissed immediately. And I think the people that view this as a rescue or as some retreat by Smith read this completely wrong. This is what happens in the ordinary course. If the Supreme Court takes an action that eliminates an approach that was previously available, the prudent thing to do is to change course. The facts haven't changed, and as you pointed out, the charges haven't changed. They're the same charges, and they're easily proved.
Right, and of course, we should emphasize, as Evan did, it was a different grand jury. So there's no bias or prejudice by them on what they were looking at. A new group of people looked at a new indictment and they came to a very clear conclusion that it was that it should go ahead. All right, Ty, thank you.
My pleasure. Nice to be with you.
All right, you too. And next we have